Now, this is a hard room to cool. Although it seems, from my experience of being in this room is oftentimes just freezing cold. It just can't keep up with the time, really. Yeah. There's a meeting? My neighbor meets after the meeting begins. Oh, okay. They have to wait. There's been days, in the old days, we would go way longer than 4 o'clock. Yeah, we're hopefully it'll be done by
I figured you all weren't worried if there's any doubt.
She said she's on her way.
Yeah.
Well, and then I went into the other office.
Oh, I know, I asked that.
All right.
You made it.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. If we may have a roll call, please.
Board Member Wright.
Here.
Board Member Watts.
Here.
Board Member Walsh. Board Member Bartholow. Board Member Badenfort.
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone. And Chair Galvin.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Members Walsh, Bartholow, and Vice Chair Arnone.
Thank you. At this time, I'll turn it over to Assistant City Attorney to announce our closed session, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 2.1 is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9 regarding David Palaio et al. Versus Utility Partners of America LLC et al. Sonoma County Superior Court case number SCV-264530.
I see no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no email or voicemails were received.
Okay, I'll now reconvene the special meeting of the Board of Public Utilities and ask Secretary Montoya for a roll call, please.
Board Member Wright,
Here.
Board Member Watts,
Here.
Board Member Walsh, Board Member Bartholow, Board Member Badenfort,
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone, and Chair Galvin.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present, with the exception of Board Members Board Members Walsh, Bartholow, and Vice Chair Arnone.
Great, thank you. I'll now ask Assistant City Attorney Biggerstaff to report out on our closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For item 2.1 closed session, the board gave direction to staff.
Very good. That'll conclude the agenda for this closed session and special meeting, so we'll adjourn that meeting and we'll resume with our regular meeting in about 10 minutes. It's going to take us a few minutes to transfer over the technology. Good afternoon. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. May we please have a roll call?
Board Member Wright?
Here.
Board Member Watts?
Here.
Board Member Walsh? Board Member Bartholow? Board Member Badenfort? Here. Vice Chair Arnone? And Chair Galvin.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of board members Walsh, Bartholow, and Vice Chair Arnone.
Thank you. Item number 2 on the agenda is statement of abstention by board members. Do we have any? Hearing none. We have no study session. Item number 4 is the approval for the minutes from the June 15th meeting. They were sent out to you. We'll open it up for any public comment on item number 4.1. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Montoya?
Okay. We have no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no voicemail or email comments were received.
Very good. The minutes will be entered. We'll now move to item 5.1, which is a staff briefing on the recycled water supply update. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. As mentioned, we'll have our recycled water supply update, and Mike Prinz, our Deputy Director of Regional Water Reuse Operations, will be making the presentation. Chair, board members, just give us one moment as we work out technology glitches. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Thanks, Samantha. I'm sure that would have taken a lot longer if I was trying to do it myself, so Anyway, thank you. Mike Prinz, Deputy Director of Regional Water Reuse Operations, bringing to you today an update on our recycled water status. The theme of the presentation today is the geysers annual maintenance shutdown, which is actually occurring as I speak to you today. It's been going on for a little over a week. The photo on the introductory slide is the parking area in front of the Bear Canyon pump station, which is the lowest elevation pump station on Pine Flat Road. It is one of 3 that is required to elevate the water or pressurize the water in the pipeline to get it up to the top of Pine Flat Road and to the terminal reservoir. The picture is notable in my mind because I think there's only one period during the year where we have that many vehicles in front of the pump station. In fact, most days out of the year, there's nothing parked in front of the pump station. You'll see in front of the entrance to the pump station a particularly large truck, which is a truck that is being used to collect basically a sediment that settles out in the wet well of the pump station. We clean out that wet well every shutdown to prevent that sediment, and I think it might even be dead algae from the ponds that are that store a lot of our recycled water in the system, so that sediment doesn't accumulate in other parts of the system and affect instrumentation and things like that. A number of those vehicles are city vehicles that staff use to get up to that part of the system and then also go to each of the pump stations individually. Inside the pump station, this is what it looks like. You may have seen photographs like this before. The only really evidence in this photograph of the work that's being done in the wet well, which is just a very, very large chamber underneath the floor of this pump station, is the ventilation equipment that's over by the open door to the pump station. It's worth pointing out in this photograph that if you look carefully, you will count 5, or I should say 6 motors, when in reality there are only 5 pumps online and therefore 5 motors needed. But to the left in the photograph, you'll see a spare motor, which we store at the pump station. In the event that we had a problem with the motor, we have a spare ready to go. It's a little harder to discern, but right next to that spare motor on the left is a black piece of equipment, which is actually a spare pump as well, which can be put into the wet well via the bridge crane, which is at the top of the pump station, out of the field of view of the photograph. But we do have spare equipment up there in the event that we have a problem, which would be most significant during the winter when we are operating at a full 5-pump operation. So there are staff in this photograph that are a little too hard to see that are doing different types of work inside the pump station, which I've got some photos of coming up next. There is a lot of piping in the pump stations related to the cooling water system, which is used to cool the liquid-cooled pump motors. Due to noise concerns, a mitigation for the project included installing pump motors that are liquid cooled, which is fairly uncommon. And in order for that to work, you have plumbing to circulate the coolant to the motors and then go through some heat exchangers to cool down so that you have an actual functional cooling loop. Some of the plumbing for that cooling system has developed leaks over the years. It's copper piping, and a lot of the fittings are soldered fittings, and you can see an example of a leaking fitting right there. It's not by any means a catastrophic issue, although it is something that we need to stay ahead of and do maintenance on things like that during a shutdown. This is a more significant leak, and really I think the reason that you see the kind of strange accumulation on the fitting is just the nature of the glycol in the cooling water, and I think there might even be some interaction with the copper and the solder of those fittings. Nonetheless, we've got some pretty interesting equipment that we use to remedy those problems that avoids the need to solder fittings. It's actually a pretty expensive piece of equipment. I think that tool there that Dave Hamby actually is using in that photograph costs about $2,000. It's not your average cordless drill, I'll put it that way. And it is used to compress fittings onto the copper pipe, and those fittings actually have a rubber O-ring in them. So when you compress the fitting onto the pipe, you compress that rubber O-ring and produce a seal, which previously had been achieved through soldering a copper fitting onto the pipe. So this is a lot easier to do. It's faster. You don't have to completely purge the pipe of residual water, which would otherwise affect a soldered joint. And it's the first time I've seen staff using them, and it made me want to buy one. Actually, they're pretty impressive. This is Dave Hamby again getting ready to use that tool on a lot of the fittings that you see in that photograph. It's really a great operation because you can cut and fit all the fittings in the pipe and do what's referred to as a dry fit to make sure everything fits just so. And then when you have everything aligned the way you need it, you can use that tool and go around and seal all the fittings. And it's very conducive to an efficient operation and lets staff work on other things as opposed to consuming a lot of time. And in reality, that diameter of copper pipe actually takes quite a bit of time to do soldering of the old style soldered copper joints. So it's I think a tool like that, as expensive as it is, actually pays for itself in the amount of staff time that is saved. Moving on, this is a photograph of the Pine Flat pump station, which is the highest pump station in the string of 3 on Pine Flat Road. And it's a panorama photograph, which may be obvious, and we have a few of the panels for the electrical connections for the pump motors opened up, and staff are doing maintenance on those. Actually, Mike McComb, Chris Kirby, and Eric Longbella are the staff in that photograph. I've got some close-ups, but I think that is a pretty good photograph to show you the magnitude of the pump station, and you don't usually see it in this configuration with panels open and staff working on it. What's not really clear in the photograph is there are tripods in the front or the foreground of that photo that have lights just to illuminate the station because the power is off and the normal lighting in the pump station is not operable. So we have a generator, a portable generator operating tripod mounted lights so that staff can actually have good visibility when they're doing the work in those electrical cabinets. This is just a different perspective. The illumination that you see, most of the illumination in the pump station is from the portable lights. And again, it's just another perspective on the work that's being done on the electrical connections. You may ask what kind of work is being done there, and really it's going through all of the connections and making sure that all the fasteners are tightened down to the proper torque limits that they can loosen over the period of a year, and so it's one of the maintenance items that we do when we do the electrical work in the pump stations. Again, just another perspective. Mike McComb is on the left on the ladder. He is one of our more senior electricians, and I'm very happy that he's on the team and somewhat nervous about his retirement, which is not too far in the future, although he hasn't mentioned any dates. But he has a huge amount of institutional knowledge, particularly at the Laguna Treatment Plant. But his expertise in the field of electrical work is pretty much, I think, unparalleled in the sub-regional system. So we're wanting him to pass on as much of his institutional knowledge as possible to newer employees before he does decide to retire. Just another shot of Mike McComb, close up, working in some of the electrical cabinets there. I want to draw your attention to a detail in this photo, though. The red circle shows what's referred to as a lockout tagout tag. There's a lot of hazardous energy in this system in the form of hydraulic pressure. As I think I may have mentioned in previous presentations, the discharge pressure of these pump stations is approaching 600 psi, which is a pretty high pressure. A lot of water mains in the streets for the potable water distribution in Santa Rosa might have pressures as high as 150, slightly higher than that, 150 psi. So a 600 psi discharge pressure on a pump station is very significant, and it can be very hazardous. Even lower pressures than that can be hazardous. So there's a very significant need to make sure that we go through what's referred to as a lockout, tag-out process for electrical equipment, but then also the pipeline itself. By isolating valves or closing valves, we can isolate sections of the pipeline that remain under pressure, but it's hydrostatic pressure, basically just due to the elevation of the water above the pump station in the pipeline. And that lockout, tag-out process is what's necessary to ensure that all of the hazardous potential energy is controlled in a way so that it's safe for staff to work on the systems. That's just to zoom in on one particular tag. That's for an isolation valve for one of the pumps, but there are numerous other tags used throughout the system when we are doing work on it. Some of them are for electrical equipment, a lot are for valves. Calpine, as you know, delivers power to the pump stations up on the hill, Pine Flat, Mayacamas, and the Bear Canyon pump station. And so they have equipment which also requires us to coordinate directly with them so that we do sort of a joint lockout, tag out operation to make sure that city staff have equipment locked out and tagged out, but then also Calpine staff have their facilities locked out and tagged out. And actually earlier this year we went through, I think it might have been one of our first times where we actually did joint training with Calpine staff as well to make sure that that was handled well. Moving on, you have seen versions of this chart many times in the past. The red line, kind of jagged line, represents the current water year. The black line represents the last water year. So you can see over between July and August about where our storage levels are right now relative to last year. The gray line that sort of goes through all of those lines is the average for a number of years. But I would just draw your attention to the fact that the red line sort of has an angle point in it where it starts to level off, and that is directly attributable to the Geysers pipeline being shut down, and shows you the effect of not running the Geysers pipeline during the summer and how even in the midst of a fairly significant irrigation demand, with the Geysers not running, our storage levels can level off because the plant is still generating on the order of 14 million gallons a day of recycled water. So when the Geysers flow goes down to 0 million gallons a day, it does have a direct effect on recycled water storage levels. So, moving on, this actually shows the trend of production at the Laguna Treatment Plant for the current water year. This shows a bunch of sort of spaghetti lines in the background, which are individual prior historical water years trends. The dark black line that kind of is an upside down W does represent this year, and we did have a decline in flows in February, but we did see a lot of production in January and then later in late February and March. But as you can see, things have tapered off to below our historical averages, which are represented by the purple line. And then last year was a pretty low production year, as represented by the red line as well. So it's a fairly quick presentation today. Happy to answer any questions about the Geysers shutdown or recycled water storage status.
Thank you, Deputy Director Prinz. I'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. Board Member Wright.
Just one little technical question. So the on your previous slide, you show the historical average. That's the whole year average. What is the dry weather average right now? Do you know?
I don't know what our dry weather average is, but annually we hit about a little over 13 million gallons a day, and it has been declining.
Yeah, it's still declining, okay.
Yeah. Right now we are just under 15 million gallons a day. We are going to be seeing flows below 14 probably in a month or so, I would imagine.
Okay, thank you. I think one time we thought it'd be 20 million a day by this time, but that didn't happen.
Nope.
Thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? All right, we will open it up for public comments on item 5.1. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Montoya?
Okay, I see no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no email or voicemail public comment was received.
Very good. That'll take care of item 5.1. We'll move to item 5.2, which is the water supply update. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our second staff briefing will be presented by Peter Martin, our Deputy Director, Water Resources.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Here with you for a very brief water supply update today. The last time I was before this board, I did give an update that PG&E had anticipated filing for a variance related to their operational needs and fish temperature concerns. That variance request was filed to FERC, which would allow them to reduce their FERC mandated flows. And I just in this slide here summarized some of the impacts to the upper Russian River, specifically the East Fork of the Russian River above Lake Mendocino. They would be under this variance reducing their flows from the mandated 75 cubic feet per second to 25 cubic feet per second, similar to what they would have during a dry water year. But within that, they also have the flexibility to adjust it even lower should the temperatures in Lake Pillsbury exceed 16 degrees Celsius, thereby impacting the fisheries of the Eel River. And so what they are proposing is that this remains in effect until storage exceeds 6,000 acre feet following October 1st. With that too, they did note in the request to FERC that they will be developing a long-term flow regime to ensure compliance with their environmental requirements, in acknowledgement of the fact that the spill gates remain open permanently related to their seismic concerns at Lake Pillsbury. So more to come on that, but they did let FERC know that. So this request is out for public comment until August 4th. It's fully anticipated that they will have that in place in early August. With that, storage is at about 51,000 acre feet as of today, losing about 1,000 acre feet per week. So you can really see the difference there in just what I referenced earlier about not being able to close those slide gates in spring and store that additional 20,000 acre feet. So they did get off to a slower start, but still better than some of the previous drought years. And so we anticipate, obviously, in August, once they are working within that variance request, should it be issued by FERC, that there will be a little bit of a leveling off of this line too as well. In terms of Lake Mendocino, storage is about 94,000 acre feet today, with about 160 cubic feet per second outflow. And this represents over the past week or so about a 1,200 acre foot reduction in storage week by week. We did hear from Sonoma Water recently that they're forecasting to be at about 75,000 acre feet into the new water year beginning October 1st. Definitely a departure from what we've seen during the last few years of the drought. So, and then also they were able to secure more storage related to their forecast-informed reservoir operations and their deviation from their storage curve. And as of today, Lake Sonoma storage is at about just a little over 250,000 acre feet. As you recall, 245,000 acre feet is the limit for encroachment into the flood storage pool control pool. So still not quite down to, they're still operating above the flood storage levels right now, as they were issued the ability to do so by the Army Corps under their minor deviation this year. So extra padding up there in the water supply. They are forecasting at this point that they will have about 235,000 acre feet at water year end. So definitely taking advantage of that opportunity to store additional water this year. And just a real brief reminder that Sonoma Water is operating under their existing temporary emergency change order, which was issued by the State Board on May 19th. Again, this allows them to comply with the 2008 Russian for Biological Opinion and their mandated fish flows under Decision 1610 for their water rights. The term of that order is from May 1st through October 15th. Water supply conditions are at normal, and their minimum in-stream flow requirements are reduced down significantly according to the schedule above. And then just a reminder, July is Smart Irrigation Month. If customers are irrigating, we're hoping they're doing so smartly. I did want to highlight that the Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership has now launched their irrigation scheduling tool. Santa Rosa Water for a long time has done this particular service for our customers in providing weekly watering recommendations. This is great for our team in that it'll all be rolled up into one place on Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership's website, and folks will be able to click on their part of either Sonoma or Marin and get watering recommendations regularly. So we'll still continue to offer monthly watering recommendations for customers when we go out and give audits, and this month we happen to be adding that into the bill insert, but it's kind of nice to not have to do that, and now that Sonoma Marin Partnership will host that in one place. So we'll be directing folks to that website, or just in general, the region to that website, and they can get local watering recommendations there. And then, of course, they'll be continuing to promote their Water Smart plant picker. Some of the local nurseries have the signage that says it's a Water Smart plant, and they'll easily recognize that as a drought tolerant and water use efficient plant selection. And then next week is Zero Waste Week in Sonoma County. We are sponsoring 2 events during next week. The Streamside Creek Protector Day for our creek protectors, and it's a great event. And then we'll be hosting treatment plant tours to the public as well. You will have to register for those. You can register for those events at srcity.org/Zero Waste Week. And additionally, there is a whole slew of activities going on across Sonoma County, and you can get that info at zerowastenorthbay.org. And finally, I just wanted to highlight that we are working on preparing for a workshop in August. During the drought, we did hear very much from customers. They were concerned about how to take care of their trees, to irrigate them and make sure they're protected and during the drought. Well, you know, in general, we're looking forward to climate change, and we recognize just how the value of trees going forward with, the fact that we will likely see many more events like we saw in the last few years, as well as temperature extremes. So the webinar will be hosted. We're partnering with Daily Axe and Vintage Tree Care for this workshop. It's going to be hosted via Zoom, and you can learn about, just generally the ecological value the trees provide for our city, as well as how to maximize the care for them during times of drought. And so If you'd like to sign up for that, you can go to srcity.org/workshops. The good thing too about hosting these on Zoom is that we have been able to archive these, and we do post them on our Water Smart pages. So now we've added up since the beginning of COVID about a dozen different workshops where folks can learn about all kinds of water use efficient practices. So with that, happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Deputy Director Martin. I'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. All right, then we will now open it up for public comment on item 5.2. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Montoya?
Okay. There's no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no voicemail or email public comments were received.
Very good. That'll take care of item 5.2. Thank you again, Deputy Director Martin. We have no consent items. We'll now move to the first of our 2 report items. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our first report item is additional contingency contract number C00327, Terra Linda and Buena Vista Sewer and Water Replacement Phase 1. And I'm pleased to announce that making the presentation will be Sarah Matthews, who just recently passed her PE, so congratulations. And I think I'm the first to introduce you as an associate engineer. So with that, Sarah will be presenting.
Thank you, Director Burke. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. My name is Sarah Matthews, and sitting next to me is Supervising Engineer Tracy Duenas. And today I bring before you an additional contingency request for Contract 327, Terra Linda and Buena Vista Sewer and Water Replacement Phase 1. Today's presentation will be to request a second contingency increase by an administrative change order for construction work due to unforeseen costs from poor ground conditions and overruns in paving. I will begin with the background of how contingency was spent, an analysis of the current budget, and end with a recommendation. This project is part of a replacement and upgrade for neighborhood sewer and water distribution mains, which included a pavement reconstruction. It also included installing additional fire hydrants to achieve adequate hydrant spacing to meet city codes. This construction contract came before the board and was awarded to Team Gelati with a 15% contingency on April 7th, 2022. Construction began in mid-May 2022. In May, the board approved a PWO for construction management and inspection services with Green Valley Consulting Engineers. In October 2022, this project was brought back before the board to request an increased contingency for costs associated with unstable ground conditions. The October 2022 request for additional contingency was due to unforeseen ground conditions, namely pea gravel subgrade, which caused numerous trench failures. This caused extra work not anticipated in our contract, as the contractor was required to backfill these failures with controlled density fill. Because the locations and extents of the failures were unpredictable, we eliminated our sewer bid-related items and began tracking all sewer-related infrastructure by force account. As you can see in these 2 photos, the magnitude of these failures and how difficult it was to contain them as work was progressing. I'd like to quickly point out that the items highlighted in green are costs directly related to the pea gravel subgrade. The first change order eliminated 4 bid items, which returned approximately $328,000 back to the contingency balance. However, the first change order for the unstable trenches was $491,280. These costs were closely reviewed by staff and verified to be accurate. We were only able to pay the first 2 change orders before our contingency balance became $14,126 in mid-October 2022. By the time we received our third change order, insufficient funds remained in our contingency balance to pay for it. We then came before the board in October 2022 to request an additional 10% contingency to replenish our balance. When these funds were requested, we didn't anticipate an additional $190,000 in change orders by May 2023, with 60% of those due to the pea gravel subgrade. So how did we reach a negative balance? There were other factors that consumed part of the contingency budget. Before we started paving operations, we had a contingency balance of $12,461. During paving, we encountered problems such as roadway grades lower than shown on the construction plans, issues with conforming to existing buckled curb and gutter, and an extension of the paving limits to capture all the trench failures. As a result, we paid an extra $83,411 in the asphalt concrete bid items. The contractor has also submitted a request for extra work from raising and lowering of the sanitary sewer manholes and relocation of an air release valve. The request is defined as pending CCO7, valued at $24,473, and is currently under city review. Additionally, the contractor has submitted a request for extra work associated with constructing 2 fire hydrant retaining walls. At one location, an unmarked communication line was encountered, and at the second location, the existing grades were steeper than shown on the construction plans, resulting in a redesign for both spots. That request is defined as pending CCO 8 and valued at an amount of $33,630, and that work is suspended until additional contract funding is authorized. After accounting for pending CCOs 7 and 8, and the overrun of the asphalt concrete bid items, contract funding is deficient and in need of $59,031.23 to complete the project. We are requesting $88,000, which includes just under a $30,000 buffer, to ensure that this is our last request for additional contingency to complete this project. Staff anticipates that this will be sufficient funding, given that the only work left is construction of the 2 retaining walls. Because an increase in quantities of contract items occurred and contributed to exceeding the authorized contingency and total contract amount, we are requesting another increase of contract contingency. As per Council Policy 100-07, Definition G, the administrative change order is defined as a change order to a public works contract which does not change the scope of work or the intent of the contract as awarded by the original award authority. Administrative change orders may include extra work required for the proper completion or construction of the whole work contemplated, and increases or decreases in the quantity of a contract item or work. Policy D states that if an administrative change order exceeds the funds available within the authorized contract amount, it shall be returned to the original contract award authority for approval. It is recommended by the Transportation and Public Works Department and the Water Department that the Board of Public Utilities, by motion pursuant to Council Policy Number 100-07, approve an administrative change order and approve a 5% contingency increase of $88,857.05 for contract number 327 Terra Linda and Buena Vista Sewer and Water Replacement Phase 1 for a total amount of $2,309,710.20. With that, I'd like to open it up to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Very nice presentation. I'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Board of Public Utilities approve an administrative change order and approve a 5% contingency increase of $88,857.05 for contract number 00327 Tierra Linda and Buena Vista Sewer and Water Replacement Phase 1 for a total contract amount of $2,309,710.20.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Wright, seconded by Board Member Watts. This time I'll open it up for public comments on item 7.1. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Chair Montoya?
There's no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no voicemail or email public comments were received.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Watts?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously with Board Members Walsh and Bartholow and Vice Chair Arnone absent.
Very good. That'll take care of item 7.1. Thank you again, Ms. Matthews. Congratulations, and hope to see you back here before us again.
Thanks.
Item 7.2, Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our second report item is a water service agreement between Santa Rosa Water and Wright Elementary School District for Assistance Request 6104, Wright Elementary Prop 1 Consolidation Project. And making the presentation will be Andy Allen, our supervising engineer with our Water Engineering Services team.
Good afternoon, Chairman Galvin, members of the Board of Public Utilities. My name is Andrew Allen, supervising engineer with Santa Rosa Water and part of Water Engineering Services. Again, as Director Burke indicated, I'm here to present this item, the water service agreement between Santa Rosa Water and the Wright Elementary School District. I will be giving you a little background along with a location map of the school, a little history in this regard on Wright Elementary School, a discussion briefly on the request for assistance, a little more on what the project will actually look like, discuss briefly the water service agreement, and provide our recommendation. Back in 2015, the Senate per Bill 88, gave the Water Board authority to mandate consolidation of water systems for situations like this. Wright Elementary School District operates the Wright Elementary School public water system, and their water comes from an existing on-site well. In the recent past, they've had various levels of contamination of copper, iron, lead, coliform, and so those have been, the Water Board has an interest in not having that happen. So the State Water Board is recommending consolidation of the Wright Elementary School public water system with Santa Rosa's public water system. Wright Elementary School is located on Price Avenue, which is south of Highway 12 and west of South Wright Road, as shown in the photo. There's a picture of the front of Wright Elementary School. I show that because to let you all know that Wright Elementary School already has fire protection water for their facility. They came into effect in 2015 when they built their multi-purpose building. The Wright Elementary School is within the urban growth boundary of the city, outside the city limits. So ultimately, a utility certificate will be required and is already in the process of being moved forward. And before I move on, I talked about the various contaminants that are in the water. The students and faculty are currently relying on bottled water. And of course, the biggest challenge of some of these contaminants is the staining and clogging of filters of the water system. The secondary contaminants of iron and manganese are causing additional challenges. A while back, the state approached Santa Rosa Water regarding consolidation, specifically under assistant request number 6104. Part of that assistance request is the city engages a consultant, in this case GHD, a local consultant, to evaluate the system and determine what would be the best course of action to choose to fix the water problem. They evaluated replacing the well, refurbishing the well, or connecting to city water, and they settled on connecting to city water. In addition, the consultant does prepare plans and specs for construction. Kind of an engineering picture of what's going to happen out at Wright Elementary School. They will be installing a 2-inch water service off of our existing 12-inch water main, 2-inch meter, 2-inch backflow device, and then additional on-site piping to connect to their existing water distribution system. And I didn't say so, but they will be disconnecting from their well after they connect to our water system, or right at the same time. The state does require a water service agreement from Santa Rosa Water, between Santa Rosa Water and the Wright Elementary School District, before they're able to enter into a funding agreement with Wright Elementary School District. In this particular consolidation, Wright Elementary School District will pay for all the costs associated with this project, including connection fees, demand fees, and the cost of construction itself. After that they've completed that, they will receive funding for that project. They'll be reimbursed by the state for their work on the project. As I indicated in the slide, the school district is responsible for the construction project and will be reimbursed. And at this point, there is and will there never be any cost to the city with this agreement. Therefore, staff recommended by Santa Rosa Water that the Board of Public Utilities, by resolution, authorize the director of Santa Rosa Water or her designee to enter into a water service agreement with Wright Elementary School District for the AR 6104 Wright Elementary Prop 1 consolidation project, and we will be pleased to be able to provide city water to the school. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. We'll open it up to any questions or comments from the board. Board Member Wright.
One simple question. I assume Wright School will be allowed to continue using their water for irrigating their fields. Is that true?
That's my understanding. They're choosing to keep the well and use that for irrigation purposes. The 2-inch water service will provide the water for the school itself. Probably wouldn't be a big enough meter to provide irrigation at this time.
And they'll do all the bidding and management and inspection of the project? Once the grant's done, we're just doing paperwork pretty much?
Right, correct. The GHD will be working with them to get the plan specs done and usually help them go out to bid. The school district is aware of this, and they're ready to take that part of the work on. For us, it'll look like a normal encroachment permit, where they're asking to connect to our water main out in Price.
Thank you.
Board Member Watts?
Thank you. I know we saw something similar like to this project with, I think, a mobile home park that came into our system. I was just curious if we had other projects that are kind of pending to be connected with a similar process. It seems like this is probably a larger issue than just the couple that we've seen.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, we currently have 3 projects. The one you spoke of, El Cristal Mobile Home Park, specifically, and their water service agreement was very similar, and it was used as the as we prepared this water service agreement. That was a kind of a, quote, emergency connection for them ahead of the 9 water system connection project. That project is almost at the completion of the planning phase, soon to move on to, once that's completed, then we, the city, because it's a major project with multiple property owners, will be taking on the project as a capital improvement program project to connect all of those 9 systems, including providing and installing the fire protection portion of El Cristal Mobile Home Park. So that's one way that those projects get connected. And again, El Cristal was carved out so that we could get them water sooner than the rest of the project. We have this situation with Wright Elementary School District, which is kind of like El Cristal in that it's pretty much El Cristal paid for all those costs of that emergency connection and got reimbursed by the state. So they entered into a funding agreement with the state. So that's how Wright Elementary School is moving forward. We have another project that is in the planning phases on Robin Way at Moreland and Bellevue, where we have a number of 4-unit apartment buildings on individual lots. That's in the planning process. That project hasn't been fully scoped in terms of how many units will be connected, but you certainly will see that back in front of you at some point in the future. And I just got a call on another project that they may want to, the state will want to mandate that we consolidate. So it could be 2 small water system consolidating. In this situation, it's small water systems consolidating with Santa Rosa Water.
Well, just thank you for your work on this. I know that it feels very grateful that we're able to provide safe and clean drinking water for these areas that haven't had it, and so just thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? So my only question is, GHD, do we pay them, or does the district pay them or reimburse us?
They're engaged by the state of California, so they're hired by the state of California to do that work. We have no financial arrangement with them.
Great. Okay, thank you. If there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the resolution that we have before us.
I'll move by resolution to authorize the director of Santa Rosa Water to enter into a water service agreement with Wright Elementary School District.
Second.
A motion by Board Member Watts, seconded by Board Member Badenfort. At this time, we'll open it up for public comment on item 7.2. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Montoya?
I'm seeing no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no voicemail or email public comments were received.
Thank you. If we may have a roll call vote, please.
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Watts?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
That passes unanimously with Board Members Walsh, Bartholow, and Vice Chair Arnone absent.
Thank you again, Mr. Allen. Good luck with the project. Now move to item 8, which is public comments on non-agenda matters. We'll now take public comments. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9 to raise your hand. Secretary Montoya?
I see no one in chamber wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no email or voicemail public comments were received.
Thank you. So we have no referrals, we have no written communications, we have no subcommittee reports. Any board member reports? All right, no board member reports. We'll now move to the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I had a couple things very quickly for the board. First, I sent an email to the board regarding the Association of California Water Agencies Region 1 tour. That'll be of the Calpine Geysers system, and we are co-sponsoring that with Calpine. That'll be on August 11th from 9 to 3 p.m. And the Water Department does have the ability to send 3 board members. If you're interested in attending, please let me know, and I will work with my team to get you signed up. I also wanted to let the board know that we are coming up on the 20th anniversary of the Geysers system. It went into operation, I believe, in October of 2003. So we are going to be holding a 20th anniversary celebration on November 3rd. This is a Friday. The time is still being determined, but it will take place at the Geysers Visitor Center in Middletown, and we would love to have as many board members as would like to attend as possible. We're also inviting city council members. And we're going to be looking to reach out to prior board council members and those that were involved with the project. So we're looking for an exciting event. And then last, I wanted to introduce someone in our audience. We have a new Deputy Director of Engineering Services in the Transportation and Public Works Department, and that's James Jensen. And he is going to be leading our capital projects team. James comes to us specifically from Maui. Why move from Maui, I don't know, but come to us from Maui, where he was the Countywide Services Section Supervisor for the County of Maui Department of Public Works. And prior to that, he spent 10 years as a civil engineering supervisor with Adobe Associates in Santa Rosa. So we're excited to have him join the city team and excited to have him lead the capital projects team. And that is my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Burke, and welcome, Mr. Jensen, back to Santa Rosa. Glad to have you on board. Any board member questions or comments for the director? All right, we'll open it up for public comments on item number 13. If you wish to make a comment via Zoom, please raise your hand. If you're dialing in via telephone, please dial *9. Secretary Montoya?
There's no one in chambers wishing to make public comment, no hands raised on Zoom, and no email or voicemail public comment was received.
Very good. That'll take care of item 13. That will conclude our agenda for today. So we are adjourned. Have a good afternoon.